Coach and Counselor explores how today's youth benefit from intentional, empowering adult leadership. Each episode blends perspectives from coaches, mentors, players, and mental health professionals shaping the next generation on and off the field. From tough conversations to inspiring transformations, we dive into what it takes to support young people in today's world. All right, welcome to the Coach and the Counselor, where we have Jon Moscot, who has a long history in baseball as an Olympian, a professional pitcher, some business background in blast motion, which is where both he and I met years ago. Jon was, like as we like to say, number one in sales, and I was number two, jokingly, because Jon had more countries than I had states, but we'll leave that for a later time. And then since that time, Jon's gotten into a couple other tech baseball arenas, but most recently has left the baseball space altogether, and we'll get into that in a second. Jon, welcome aboard. Anything I need to add to that?
Thanks, Tony. No, I love the little elbow there. It's always fun to get on the horn with you, and I'm excited to talk today.
Well, it was good. It was a good time while it lasted. We had a lot of fun. Learned a lot during that process. The blast community was great. We got to meet some great people, both at the youth level, the high school level, and the collegiate and professional level as well. So it was a very, very cool experience. I don't regret it at all. Let's start with a couple quick hitters. A couple quick questions for you right out of the box. One. The All-Star game just happened and they just made some changes to it. You like those changes with not going into extra innings, or is that something that you wish you were a bit more, traditional?
I find myself falling more into the traditional category. I do think that an extra inning game would have been more fun to see, but I also understand it from the MLB side, right? And just the utilization of arms. You heard that I think there was 12 guys that turned down accepting an all-star offer before they went to Mizorowski so that he could pitch. I mean, there's a reason for that. Injuries are rampant in the game right now, and guys want to continue through the course of a very, very long season staying healthy. So as a former pitcher, right, like I have two camps on that front. Like the home run derby is fun to watch. I get it. You're not utilizing those arms, and you don't have to utilize more arms that aren't necessarily expecting to pitch in the game. But at the same time, my traditionalist and the guy who did play is like, I want to see a real baseball game.
Yeah. So I had another question for you, but I think you opened up the can of worms there. Why do you think there is so much injury in the sport of baseball when it comes to pitching right now?
I think the answer is extremely simple, Tony. There's incentives and rewards to throw hard. And the human body is not meant to throw 100 miles an hour repeating time and time again, day in and day out over the course of 162 games, year over year, right? Like your body's going to break down. I don't care how strong you are. And until that is not incentivized in the game, this injury is not, this pandemic is not going to go away.
Yeah, there's probably not a lot that you can do, right? Physically to train, not train, throw or not throw, to mobility. I mean, strengthening other portions of the body. There's probably not a lot you can do. It's just not meant to do that.
I mean, they're doing everything. That's why they're throwing 100.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not like those guys aren't like putting the work in and staying physically fit and doing all of the lifting and mobility and every type of training that you can possibly imagine, right? Like you have to in order to perform at that level. So yeah, your body is just not made to do that. Now you get the freaks here and there, the guys that can do it until they're 40. Aroldis Chapman, right? Like guy's going to throw 100 until he's 60. But that is not the norm.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, you speak from experience. So you had an arm injury. Walk me through that when you were with the Reds, right? And then you had another injury when you were playing for Team Israel. Take us back to both of those. One was a bit more of a freak accident with the Reds. Talk us through that one.
Yeah. So the freak accident was, it was just a rookie called up. I was, doing really well at the time in AAA. I was 10-1 or 9-1, I believe, with like a 1 ERA. I was really throwing the ball well. Felt like I was invincible. But at this time, I'm 20. I think I was 23 years old when I got called up, right? And so I'm facing guys that I've watched my whole life, and there's a little bit of awe and starstruck when you're facing Miguel Cabrera and my favorite player, David Wright, right, growing up. And so that all played into the emotion of that injury where, I got a ground ball comeback or Miguel Cabrera hit it to me. I was a little bit too amped up, took the runner back to second base, was taking him in a rundown and pump faked. And obviously I know I'm supposed to give the ball up, but I wanted to, I don't know whether it was gusto or it was just me being a little bit over zealous in that start, my third big league start. I went to tag the runner out, and he dove back to second base. And I was like, well, I'm not going to not get him out right now. And so I went and dove with him. And instead of sliding in the dirt, right, I scorpioned, I broke my shoulder, I tore my labrum, and it was an 100% tear of the arm. So I missed the rest of the season. I come back the following year. Anytime you injure anything other than your arm, especially on the non-throwing side, right, like you're going to somewhat alter mechanics if it's not 100% healed. I came back a little bit too early, and sure enough, altering those mechanics ended up leading to an arm injury for me on my throwing arm, which turned out to be what ended my career, right? And if we want to go down a whole nother Pandora's box, which I won't do, I'll just kind of give you the general gist of this. My arm injury on my throwing side really stemmed from overuse as a young baseball player. And I have very, very passionate thoughts about how youth sports, specifically baseball, utilizes pitchers' arms. And I think that also does have and play a role in the arm injury pandemic is really like these early years of development are critical not to overuse players' arms.
Yeah, I think you're going down a path that I definitely want to go down. So that's great. Let's keep going down there. I mean, the whole concept of the coach and the counselor is to try to prevent people from making the exact same mistakes that we did, right? But as players and as coaches and as mentors. So what advice, let's just take it from there. What advice would you give? Well, I mean, you're going to be in this situation, right? You have two young kids, Liam and Jet, right?
Yeah.
How, first, how did you get the approval to name your kid Jet? Because I tried to get approval to name my son Nolan Ryan, and that was a no-go.
Oh man. Well, I had loved the name. I've always loved it. And I lost out on the name battle on number 1. So when the wife came in hot with another name on number 2, it was between mine and hers. And the agreement is that she gets number 3. So you'll see that when number 3 pops out, you'll see that that's all her. But I got number 2. So there you go.
Well, are they left-handed pitchers in the future, or is Jet going to be running a 6'2", 60?
So Liam's my oldest right now. He's got a heck of an arm. He's a right-hander like me. And Jet, we'll see. He's eating everything with his left hand at 1.5. So I'm trying to stick that right on behind his body.
Okay, cool. All right.
Yeah.
So we're long story or a long path to get to this question, which is, you now are going to have this opportunity to raise your kids, hopefully to be pitchers. What would you do differently? What would you do more of? What would you do less of? And how would you as a parent and hopefully their coach try to prevent them from having an injury as they grow and develop?
Yeah. And I've thought actually quite a bit about it. I find myself extremely interested in mechanics and pitching. And my biggest problem with youth sports is that when a player is asked, are you feeling okay? Right? Of course they're going to say yes. No young player is going to want to say, no, I'm not ready to throw, right? They want to play. And the truth is they may not know that they're not ready to go or ready to throw. And that's the responsibility that falls on a coach or a parent. And so when you ask me how I plan to treat my boys if they grow up, I have no interest in them being pitchers specifically until they're well over 10, 11, 12 years old. right? They'll pitch here and there because they'll have good arms, God willing, and if they want to. But I want them to play a variety of sports. I want them to be real athletes first and foremost. We get caught up in this fallacy that the more and the earlier you specialize, the better you're going to be. And sure, is there truth in that? Maybe you can do things a little bit more refined than another player. Yeah. But I've played at a high enough level, pitching in the big leagues to see that the guys that make it are the guys who are the athletes. They're really, really good athletes. And that transcends that early development of being specifically a pitcher. Now, I'm not to say, right, and I've talked to orthopedists on this, that there is not some level of mobility and flexibility that is gained by specializing in throwing at a young age. So I'm not saying I'm not going to have them throw, but being smart about the volume in which they throw, how often they're utilized, and what their form as they throw are three very important things to me, right? So I would never have my kid go back to back, throw back to back days, right? We see those tournaments Friday, Saturday, Sunday, where the best player pitches on Friday and Saturday and catches on Sunday. That's horrible. Yep. Just straight up horrible. I would rather a kid throw 120 pitches in one outing than throw back to back days.
Yep.
Obviously they have to have good form, but so I get down a rabbit hole there and I can go for days, but I want my boys to be athletes. I want them to enjoy the game. And, and that's it.
Yeah. I agree with you. Obviously that answers the question that we don't need to ask on early specialization. But I took that same path with my own two kids. And when I coached, I did the exact same thing. I literally remember we pitched one of our best pitchers. I mean, you're probably talking a 12-year-old tournament, and he pitched in a pool game on Saturday, and it was against a really good team. And I knew that, in order to win the game, that would allow us to get a bye in the next round and, to be in a better part of the bracket, which, I wanted to play better talent. And so I pitched our best pitcher in a pool game. And literally one of the coaches came up to me after the game and said, "You realize you can't throw Adam tomorrow or for the rest of this tournament?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely. That's 100%. I wouldn't have done it anyway." For that reason, I really hated to do it. And I probably, I can't say this for sure, but I probably never threw guys back to back for that exact same reason. If they pitched on Saturday, they weren't going to throw on Sunday. We had plenty of arms. We had plenty of athletes, and we didn't really care about winning the trophy. We just wanted to play some really high competitive, games and get in and get out of there. That third game on a Sunday is not valuable to just near anyone. Right.
You said it, man. Like you are a minority though. Most of these coaches are going out there to win that trophy. And the reality is like, look, Tony, if I could give one message on this, like this is so important to me. I had a trophy wall, and this is not a echo chamber for success for me, right? Like I had a trophy wall that had every trophy you could ever imagine from 9 years old to 16, right? Like every tournament I was in, I was on the best teams. We won. I would always be the pitcher on that team. I don't have any of those, nor do I remember any of those games, right? Like those trophies ended up collecting dust, and I don't know where they are now. And more than anything, right? Like it's the wear and tear that put on my body. Like winning those tournaments was not the most important thing. It was playing the games and getting the experience. And that's where the value comes in, man.
But it's interesting that you say all that, right? Your trophies all over the wall. You're an Olympic pitcher. You played professionally, but your path was, probably not as normal as most people would think. How many, I'll set you up here, right? But how many offers did you get to play college baseball out of high school? What was your experience through, high school into college and then professionally? Tell us about that kind of odd, what might be odd journey, but between me and you, it's probably not.
Yeah, especially nowadays with the way that the portals are working in college baseball, where it's just more difficult to get a scholarship out of high school. I was a guy that was a late developer. I may have been like we talked about, somebody who could, do the little things well, but I was not physical enough. And so when a school came to see a right-hander throwing 86 miles an hour in high school, it was like, well, yeah, maybe one day, but not right now. We're not willing to spend money on this guy. And the harsh truth was like, I got to get better. So I took a bet on myself and I went to junior college and I went in and worked my butt off. And I ended up being the guy that year. I started to grow into my body a little bit and I had a great year. And, the first opportunity to take that next leap into the Division I realm of baseball, I got a phone call and it said, "Hey, we have a spot. You had a great year. We can't really give you much, but you'll have a chance to pitch on this team." And I jumped at that. And I knew that like, hey, betting on myself would be better than waiting around and seeing what else came. And so I took a bet and I bet on myself, and sure enough, the rest is history.
Great. Well, we're going to take a quick little break for our sponsor here, but when we come back, I want to ask you probably a question that hasn't been asked to you quite often, which is what time in your career were you most sad? So think about that for a second. Let's take a quick break and we'll be back in a second.
Cool.
As we're talking about the challenges coaches face with young athletes, it reminds me of something that affects every youth sports organization, the administrative nightmare that can pull coaches away from actually coaching. I recently spoke with Jennifer from the Riverside Youth Soccer League, and she told me something that really stuck with me. She said, "We were spending more time managing registrations and chasing down forms than we were developing players." Sound familiar? That's exactly why organizations across the country are turning to OperationPlayerAssist.com. They specialize in handling all those behind-the-scenes headaches that eat up your time. Registration systems that actually work, automated communication tools that keep parents informed without blowing up your phone, and emergency response protocols that give you confidence when things go sideways. Jennifer's League saw immediate results. Registration time cut in half, parent complaints about communication dropped to almost zero, and here's the best part: coaches could focus on coaching instead of paperwork. If you are tired of administrative chaos stealing time from what really matters, developing young athletes, I encourage you to schedule a free 15-minute demo with the team at OperationPlayerAssist.com. See firsthand how they can streamline your operation. Visit OperationPlayerAssist.com and click Schedule Demo to book your 15-minute consultation, because when the administrative burden is lighter, everyone wins. Coaches, parents, and most importantly, the kids. OperationPlayerAssist.com, supporting the game behind the game.
All right. We're back here with Jon Moscot, former Olympian, former professional pitcher. The question that we posed to him before we left was, what was a time in your career where you were most sad? Is that a question that you've gotten, much in the past, Jon?
Most sad? No, actually, I don't know if I've ever been asked that, but I have a pretty good answer to that question because it's very distinct in my memory. So I was in high A Bakersfield. I had just been drafted in 2012. This is the start of the 2013 season. So I had gone to rookie ball. I was drafted with a group of at the time there was 40 rounds, right? The rookie class that had been drafted with me was made up of quite a few of my own actual friends, UCLA players, a Pepperdine player who came with me in the draft. And so what the Reds did is they sent me to high A that year, and all of the other guys went to low A, right? So for anyone that doesn't know what that means, basically I jumped over low A baseball and went straight from rookie ball to high A. So now this was a vote of confidence from the organization and me. And I could have taken it one of two ways, one being a vote of confidence and two being a sentence of pressure that I have to perform or else I'm going to get sent down. And to start the season, right, I took the route of taking the latter philosophy. So I put this amazing amount of undue pressure, worrying about every pitch that I threw. I was so concerned about not living up to the expectation of the organization by giving me this boost of saying, hey, you're going to high A, you're going to be, you're going to be our guy. You're going to move quickly through the organization. And Tony, I'm telling you, I got shelled. I had like a 13 ERA in 3 games. I was like, I'm not good enough to do this. I don't know what I'm going to do. And I looked in the mirror and I was like, I was really upset. My dad came to the game. He was like, hey, like, what's going on with you? I haven't ever seen you like this. And I felt like I had the weight of the world on my shoulders. Like I was trying to lift up more than just myself and live for expectations that were outside of what I could control. And so I read a book. Actually, more specifically, I listened to a book by Ken Revisa. I don't know if you know the name, but Ken was a very, very strong, powerful mindset coach. And two words stuck out to me from that book, and it really changed the course of my career and my life. And it was watch this. And what watch this did was it took away the pressure for me to throw an 0-2 fastball right where I wanted it, or that pitch that I was like, I can't miss with this, or as a player, like I have to be perfect. And it's basically changed the paradigm. It changed my mindset into I'm in control. Watch how nasty I am. Watch how good this pitch is, and it was watch this to my coaches, to my teammates, to the fans, to the guys on the other team. And all of a sudden, all this pressure that was on my shoulders was transitioned into this confidence that I had of like, watch how good this is going to be. And from then on, man, I had 8 more starts. I was in Double-A. I was dealing in Double-A, and then the next following year, I was in the big leagues.
Awesome. Did you have any other, I mean, obviously Ken's one of the most famous baseball sports psychologists of literally of all time. Did you have any other direct dealings with sports psychologists or counselors that you met with face to face or over the phone throughout your career?
So we had an individual within the organization that would come in and talk to us with the Reds, especially at the big league level. There was some value. I think he was a gentleman that I'm blanking on his name, but he worked with LeBron James at the time. And, you know, his message was really just like, you have to believe that you're the best. You have to believe it, and you can't fake it. And I felt like that was true, but it was very difficult to get to that realization. And I found Ken's message a little bit easier to like really take and put into effect.
And I remember my time working with you at Blast. I think we even, we tried to start a little bit of a book club amongst the other sales managers and leaders of the company. Didn't go as well as probably you and I planned, but what other books that you read throughout your career, whether it be in baseball or since then, has played a pretty significant impact in your life?
Oh, wow.
Yes. Sorry to put you on the spot for that one.
No, man, that's a healthy ask right there. I love to read. Mindset, I think if we're on the same vein, is a phenomenal book. I actually find reading to be something that, helped me get through the minor leagues and to take pressure off of my, basically my shoulders. I felt like when I was on the bus on a ride, like instead of thinking about the game, I would find myself lost and immersed in a book. That was really important for me. I think, The Alchemist is one of my favorite books by Paulo Coelho, and A Man's Search for Meaning.
Yeah.
Those are really powerful books, but, those would be ones that I would call out.
Appreciate that. Yeah, man. I think I remember reading that, and posting something on social media and you and I having a discussion about it, while we were at Blast. That's a phenomenal book. If anyone has not read it, they definitely should add it to their list. I hate to do this to you, but I got to go back to the early specialization thing, and just to kind of button this conversation up, because I had a conversation in actually the last podcast that I recorded. They kind of talked about keeping up with the Joneses, and the game has changed since I played. It's changed even more in a short amount of time since you played. And the kind of the keeping up with the Joneses philosophy was like, hey, if you really want to make it to, say, the Power 2, right, in the SEC, or Power 4, or to professional baseball, you're going to have to do what everyone else is doing. And if everyone else is starting to specialize, starting to hit the weight room more, work on mobility and strength training and doing all of the things, that if you don't specialize at some point, you're probably going to be left behind. You feel that same way, even with all the changes? And if so, what's the kind of age that someone would probably need to start specializing if they're not going to do it early, which, I think we all agree with you on that.
Yeah. I think that there's two sides to the coin, right? Like it's certainly important, to stay up to date on trends. And, I see guys that get to high school I'd say about freshman year of high school is when you start really want to like lock in all right, I've committed to one sport, because I work with a kid who's a quarterback and a pitcher. And I have, over the course of the last, 5-6 years, worked with a couple that have played both sports. And while I love the weightlifting from football and the aspect that brings in terms of physicality, the fact that you're missing out on like 3 to 4 months of the year of games and exposure really is a detrimental factor in your ability to look to the college landscape for recruiting and development. And so I think the younger you are, the more you should play more sports. I'm not negating the importance of physicality. So weight room, all of those pieces of the puzzle are extremely important. Agility, mobility, right? Like those are things that you can do cross sport, but you got to look to target by the time you get to high school that you're in one lane. And there will be arguments for and against that, but I believe that that's a really, really tight rope to walk if you're going to try and play multiple sports in high school nowadays.
Yeah. Okay. So you're pretty much spot on with what the other guest had to say as well. So interesting, which I said it last time, I'll say it again. It's, that's going to piss off a lot of high school coaches, a lot of guys that are in high school that are trying to, especially in those smaller schools, the 3A, maybe 4A and below sort of schools, like they need those kids to play 3 sports in order to have those sports to be able to survive. So, I wonder as things evolve, what role high school sports are going to continue to play in people's lives. Topic for a later date. All right. We asked you what your, saddest time was, and now what's one of the most, the coolest, most memorable points of your life when it comes to sports, your most memorable experiences?
Oh man. Well, I think obviously getting called up, right? Like that was a culmination of my whole life's work, and it's one of the most incredible experiences. And I'd say it to anybody if you ever get a chance to spend one day right in the big leagues, like it's worth every ounce of sweat and blood and tears that you've put into it. And it was, man, it was an incredible experience. Taking them out in the Olympics was really meaningful for me, not just because it was the Olympics and it was a world stage, but I had been through 4+ years of injuries to that point, and to fight to get back, to be able to contribute on a team and know one more time that I could wear a jersey and do something that I loved and was taken away from me, what I felt like prematurely by injury. That was extremely meaningful. And then the last thing I'll mention, Tony, is last year in October, I did the California Ironman. So I trained for the whole year, and it was like one of those bucket list things that I was like, I want to do this for myself. And honestly, that might have been more meaningful than even pitching in the Olympics, because the amount of work and time and dedication and 4 a.m. wake ups and commitment to that craft to be able to get across the finish line was something that, like, it's very difficult to put into words.
And quite an incredible accomplishment, especially with, 2 young boys at home, and, being a role model now, right, to your kids of, do as I do, as opposed to just simply do as I say, which never really seems to work very well. So
right.
Great that they can see you work for something that takes time, and the benefits of it don't necessarily come overnight. It's something that's gonna you have to continue to work at over and over and over again in order to reap those benefits. So that's kind of a great lesson for your kids to see firsthand. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
What role? I mean, obviously, raising kids, what sort of level of fulfillment are you getting out of that now? Now that your playing career, and, it sounds like for the most part, you're not really coaching right now or doing lessons. Where are you?
No, I still have a private instruction business out here, and I do some coaching on the side. I think one of the more powerful things, and I see this a lot when I'm watching people coach, and the negative impact on a player when you yell at them, and for people, I guess, that frankly don't really know I guess, the ins and outs of the game as well as someone like myself. And that's not to toot my own horn, but when I watch a coach who yells at a player for missing a spot with a fastball or swinging through a pitch, right? That doesn't help anybody. I think the best and most impactful way to coach is to do so from a mindset and from like framing it in a positive light. Like, hey buddy, I know you're trying to hit that, but like, why don't you try doing it this way? Instead of like, come on, you can hit that. Like it's really difficult for me to see coaches kind of yell at, especially younger players. Like the older you get, you should be able to handle that, but it kind of turns people off from the game. And it's unfortunate that exists out there. I wish everybody could have a little bit of, it's a hard game.
Yeah.
So,
And the
yeah,
ultimate feedback is when you did miss that, when you did swing and miss, that you swung and miss, and no one needs to tell you that. Right. And
right,
same
right.
thing with a pitch, especially as you start playing at a higher level. When you miss your spot, it's going to go a long way, and you don't need anyone to tell you that you missed your spot. um, well, tell me about, let's get into life after sports for you. And I'll tell you, I stole something from you. Um, my daughter just recently finished her playing career. She had opportunities to go play in Germany and decided against it. And so she struggled a little bit with, all right, my career is literally over. I'm not going to go play. Should I go play? Should I not play? Should I start, go and get my master's? And so I was trying to search for my own, bits of wisdom to help her through that time. And I stumbled upon a dialogue that you had with another, member on LinkedIn. And, he had, specifically it said something about how all those sort of trials and tribulations that you went through in the sporting arena had allowed you to better prepare you for life after sports or life after baseball or however you put it. And I stole a little bit of that and crafted a message to my own daughter and used it. So, kudos to you. I guess it's a, sort of a long-winded backwards compliment, but talk about, life after sports and how that has prepared you for, the success that you've had now in business.
Well, I appreciate that, Tony. Yeah. I mean, I think, you saw me when I was at starting off my career post sports, and, obviously it was in the sports industry. So I was close and comfortable enough to be able to talk to it. But the reality is that you spend all day, every day at quote unquote work, right? But it doesn't feel like work because we're playing a game that we love and we enjoy it around friends. Uh, how you market that is very important in how you start and look at your career and really like the longest portion of your life, which is your working life. That's going to be much longer than the time that we were able to play professional or college sports. And so when I started, I was really, I had nothing. I had no idea what I was going to do. I knew that I had a very strong skill set and the ability to make friends, because wherever I went, I could be very, comfortable with people. And I was in a clubhouse with a variety of different players from different countries and backgrounds. And there was always camaraderie there, right? There was never any bad blood. And so with that and the relationships that I had gained over the course of the years of playing, I knew that like somehow, some way that was going to be meaningful to me in the future. And so I took a leap of faith. I had gotten my degree and I wanted to test out the business world. And I ended up at Blast. I did well. Obviously, you and I both were there for a while, and then I jumped onto a new opportunity in AI. We were a company that was really focused on biomechanics of the athlete, and that was a great experience for me. It was a tougher role in terms of the responsibilities and really just the personalities that were being dealt with at the time. And then I had an incredible opportunity at the turn of the year to join a private equity group. Where we buy companies and I'm out on the team searching for new opportunities for us to buy. And so, a little bit about that is that every day I wake up, I enjoy the team that I'm on. I get to search and learn about new opportunities, new businesses, new ways of things that I never even thought I'd ever have exposure to. We focus on industrial manufacturing. And so for me, it's a whole new world, completely different language. And embraced it with open arms and kind of like learning a new pitch.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've taken everything you learned there. And I think the biggest thing, I've hired a lot of, I actually try to always hire athletes and ex-military. because I've always felt like they have the discipline and they have the work ethic, and it's just been instilled into them over year after year after year after year, playing the long game as opposed to the short game. So I'm sure that too has played a role into your success and where you are today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just think that, like you said, there's ups and downs in the game, and it prepares you for the real world.
Yeah. Awesome. So what's one of the best pieces of advice any coach ever gave you?
Best pieces of advice a coach ever gave me. So I would say that, and it's between probably Ken Griffey Sr. when I was in high A and at Bakersfield, right? He was a great manager. And then on my double A pitching coach, Jeff Pissarro, pitched in the big leagues for a long time. It's hard to put it into words, like how it was messaged to me from Jeff, who's my pitching coach, but he let me struggle. Right. And he let me struggle for like 4 or 5 games because I was pretty stubborn. I thought I was good. And he wanted me to feel, sorry, go ahead.
So we all do, right? In that moment.
Yeah.
Like we all have that testosterone flowing through us, and we all think we're better than we are sometimes.
Yeah, man, 100%. And so, I hadn't really listened to him and the advice that he was offering me, not because I didn't believe him, but because I was like, I'm good. I'm doing it. Right. I don't need your help. Like, I got this thing in the bag. And, one bullpen, he pulls me aside and he's like, hey, listen, I'm not here for me. I'm here for you. He's like, I really want you to try this. If it doesn't work, don't do it. Just forget we even had this conversation, but at least give me 1 game. Just try it. What's the worst that can happen? And I was like, well, I could do X, Y, and Z. He's like, are you going to throw worse than you're throwing right now? And I was like, I didn't have a comeback. So I did it. Right. It was a mechanical adjustment, and it was hard for me to do, but I committed to it and I did it. And Tony, I tell you right now, like I went out, I threw harder, I was more accurate. And sure enough, like literally within 2 starts after that, I was dominating, moved up to AAA. And then right at the end of that season got called up. And I owe it to Jeff. And really it was more, instead of it being like a one-liner, like a very, very, cliche thing that he said to me, it was like it was an all encompassing, go through the trial and the tribulation. And when you're ready to come talk to me, and the way that he messaged that was really important, is like, hey, you know what? You've been doing it your way. Let's try it my way. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And so like that approach, it really helped me in coaching,
Yeah. It's almost, there's a proverb that I wish I could recite, but it's, it's almost the, when the student is ready, something along those lines. I wish I could recite it, but it's along those lines of letting people not intentionally fail, but letting them fail, and then, striking when the iron's hot. Like people are more apt to listen when they're failing as opposed to having success, which is, goes to that early, the early times in people's lives. There's a lot of times when, the late bloomer like yourself is more apt to learn and listen. And the person that, grows and physically grows and develops earlier, they're so good because they're just big. They have a harder time listening to instruction because, they dominate at such a young age, and they don't get smacked upside the face until much later in life.
Yeah.
And then they have to go through all that. Well, just a couple more questions for you. One being, just kind of the flip side of that, you've had those lessons from some great people. Now, what advice would you be giving, if you're coaching or when you're coaching now, what's the approach or the advice that you give to them? What's something that you can pass on to the kids that you're working with now?
Yeah, I think we've already touched a little bit on it. It's like, look, I care as a coach about you having fun on the field and enjoying winning baseball. Competitiveness is something that I don't think should be taken away from anybody, right? But one of the messages that I have is like, and this is to parents as well, right? The game that you guys play on a Saturday morning in the middle of nowhere on a, in a summer is not as important as the development long term of your son or daughter. And you don't compromise health, prioritize development over games, right? Like, not that games are not important, but like really, really focus on what it is that your individual athlete, whether you're the athlete or your son or daughter is playing, what do they need to work on to get better? And are they getting the experience and the reps that they need going out every day and playing games with a team where they get 2 or 3 at bats against poor pitching? Now, I'm generalizing here. If it's a great team playing great competition, yeah, they are. But the majority of the time, you're playing a game just to play a game, and you could get a lot more value out of working on your craft intentionally. There's a portion of that. It's like, hey, what do I need to work on? Find a coach, get with an organization that tells you that stuff. And when you do that, you're putting yourself in a much better position for success moving forward. So I always tell the players in a long-winded way, right? Like, to get to it, you're not going to remember the game that you won X, Y, and Z in this, in this time of your life. And you may not remember the development that you did, but if you're building on those building blocks week in and week out, you're going to continue to push yourself forward. And that's what you can do. You can get better every single day.
Yeah, I remember I went to Jupiter a couple years ago, and I ran into a guy that I had played against, never on the same team, but we played against each other constantly for years. And we ran into each other, and it was like and it's probably 30 years since I've seen him. It shows you my age a little bit. But man, it was like we never skipped a beat. Like, we were brothers, we were friends, we were just reminiscing about all those things, all the times in the parking lot, the car rides, the times before the games, the middle of the games, after the games. And it was like, not once did we say anything about wins, losses, me pitching against him hitting against me, his success, my success, none of that. It was all just like camaraderie, the friendship, and that it just strikes you, right? Is that 30 years later, we're still buddies. Like, we haven't talked in 30 years, but we would do anything for each other. Here we are 30 years later. So yeah, I tell that to my kids all the time is, embrace and enjoy those van rides and the plane rides. And those are some of your best memories. All the dugout time, the rainouts, all that are awesome. Well, I got one last question for you, and so it's basically the same thing, but it's the question that's pointed directly to the parent, because inevitably the parent makes the decision in this. So, what do you tell the parent of, what should they do more of, what should they do less of? I mean, you kind of answered that question in a roundabout way, but speak to the parent directly as opposed to the athlete of what should they put their focus and attention on in raising the athlete? What should they do more? What should they less of? What should be their priority, and what should just learn to just step away from?
Yeah. I would say look to surround yourself with the right people, right? Like, that's a very loaded comment and statement. But the more strategic you can be on the people that are influencing your son or daughter's lives is very, very powerful, right? Like, what their knowledge base is, how they frame things. But I'd say that more than anything, I think what stands out from my childhood, and this is a personal anecdote, right? But like, it's important, is that my love of baseball and my want and desire to play the game and work hard to achieve goals really came from like my parents being present, and that was like, hey, I wanted to do this for myself, but I also, my parents put time and money and effort, and they were there for me. And every time I'd look to the stands, they were there. That was really important to me. And I always knew that at the end of the day that I had someone in my corner and that had my back, because it can be a lonely place. So I would just say, show up.
I love it. Show up, be where your feet are. I've heard that statement too. I've always written that down and tried to repeat it, and it's great advice. Appreciate that, Jon. Appreciate everything that you brought to this episode. And you have anything final for us or anything to add?
No, no. Tony, thank you so much for having me on. This has been a pleasure. It's not often these days I get to talk baseball and coaching and sports. So I appreciate the time and look forward to connecting again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. I look forward to a few years once your kids are playing a little bit more heavy into sports to see if you're taking your own medicine. All of this discussion here.
Yeah, yeah. I'm looking forward to it too, man.
All right, John. Thank you very much. Take care and say hi to your family.
Sounds good, Tony.